Here. We can take a look at the minutes and get a motion and a second to approve.
I motion we approve.
I'll second the motion.
Mike.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Barbara, I just want to say you did a great job. I looked at it. I read every one of these minutes, and I want to say thank you. You must have practice at fielding a bunch of people and distilling this stuff into one thing. So
She attends many meetings.
yeah,
She gets a lot
Council ones are probably some of the easiest.
She gets a.
There's
a lot of
formality to council meetings. Some of these other ones, they can just go up on tangents.
well,
She makes our JED meetings actually appear interesting. Those really, I think, are about the worst. They're pretty lame, yeah, most of the time.
I know what you mean about that. All right, so Seth, do you want to tee us off a little bit? Tee us up? Not tee us off, tee us up.
Yeah, so new business tonight, and I apologize for just getting everything to you a little late. You have hard copies in front of you. I think Dan and I are going to talk through the draft executive summary and the draft implementation committee's recommendations. So we'll be presenting this to council July 15th at their workshop at 6:30. I will take lead on the presentation, but we'd like the group there to just to be a part of that as well. So that's really what I have. Dan, do you want to talk a little bit about your approach to the executive summary?
Yeah, so this is a draft, and I think what I was hoping everybody could do, you don't have to do it tonight, obviously, but I think what I'd like to do, I want to make sure that I don't put any language in there that people would feel like it wasn't representative of what we talked about. And the way I approached this was, and really what I did was Seth sent me, all the minutes that Barbara took and from our first meeting back in January, and I just took some time and kind of read through those. I kind of matched the first 3 meetings against the last 2, because at the last 2 we really kind of had deeper conversations about we'd all been working on this, but we kind of had built consensus, I think, around the key areas around the 4 subcommittees. So I'm thinking, I don't know if you can if you can read over this by a week. When's the meeting again? When's the council?
It is July 15th.
When do you have to have this stuff kind of buttoned up?
Barb, I think the deadline for that council will be the
Friday before is when I put together the council packets and they go out. So you would need a couple of days before that.
Okay.
To get everything to me.
So that would, gosh, I'd look at what date that is.
I'd be around the 6th, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
On the 6th. Okay. Yeah, if you can just get, if you have, even if you have some editorial changes that you want to do, I have no, I think that would be helpful. But we could probably cut this thing down. I think I might take a swipe at kind of just cutting some verbiage out of it, but I'll keep it the same. So anyway, if we can all get that to Seth before that date, that would be helpful. I think maybe, Seth, what it wouldn't be bad is if we just went through the document here.
Mm-hmm.
And the only concern that I had was I want to make sure that because this is the document that's going to live and breathe. I mean, both these will, right? This will be the 3-4 pager, and then but this will be the thing that people are working off of.
Yeah. So
I just want to make sure that kind of these match up as close to what people think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also match up to our discussions. So maybe we'll start with the walkable neighborhoods, and and I think I don't foresee us having to be here at 8 o'clock tonight. I think if that's okay,
Agreed.
you guys might, we just push through it. Is that fair? Okay.
And I guess for the recommendations, as you're looking at the executive summary, for the recommendations, if you guys can give me feedback on the implementation priority, we're showing short, which would be the first years 1 to 2, mid, which would be years 3 to 5, and long would be 5+. So if you have any other thoughts on the priority or the time frame for these projects, let me know and I can make those adjustments.
Say that one more time.
Yep,
Short
so
was within a year.
Short is we say
1 to 2.
I put 1 to 2 years. Mid I put out kind of 3 to 5 years, and then long would be 5+. That was
Yeah,
I was started by calling it aspirational, but I thought long term would just kind of goes a little better rhythm. So.
the one thing about if we don't stay till 8, you don't get paid till 8. You only get paid. You only get paid as long as we're here.
We could do it without.
So you, just so you know that.
I was trying to.
He
Okay.
doesn't get paid, does he?
You know.
I was. I do think
We all get paid the same.
Yeah, there you go.
I should say this though. I really do think we've done good work, and I think I don't think we have to go through all these line by line, because I think we've done the work on it. I think so I feel good about that. So first one in Walkable Neighborhoods is to complete the sidewalks along North Main to the bus stops. And this is Derek and Mindy really spent time on this one. Let me ask you this, Seth. You put in your own opinion about these, right?
Yes.
So we have to decide. Okay.
Yep.
So when we say long, we're talking 5+ years.
5+ years. Yeah.
That's your recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think the sidewalk. I mean, I think Main Street sidewalks is really going to be part of kind of a greater, and maybe it's a more specific because it's Main Street, but it'll be part of the sidewalk infill program. I think that program has to be phased, and I think based on the information that we got on the Union section and the cost of that, I really think it's critical to do these infill sections, but they're going to cost quite a bit of money, and it's going to take some time. So I don't, in long term, I think maybe is to completion, but that doesn't mean that we can't get started and sort of budget each year.
Is it something we start like it 2, then the next year 3? And
I think it's all implementation of these years. It's almost like, well, this would be to completion. Not like, doesn't mean like mid is like, oh, and it's going to be starting in 3 years and want to complete by 5. I think we're kind of looking at this as short stuff can get going on right away and get done pretty quick. Mid, okay, this is stuff in some smaller phases, and then long.
And I had started with numbers.
Could it be short, mid, and long at the same time? Does it have to be just one?
I mean, it could be. I had started with numbers, and that was based off the notes from the last couple meetings. So, like North Main Street sidewalks, I had a 1 by that as priority 1 in the walkable neighborhoods. So
I kind of like the year thing, because if you understand that concept, that long doesn't mean that we're going to start it maybe 15 years from now, but we're planning on having it completed, and it's going to take us that long to get that project done.
And the long stuff, obviously, but that's a lot of those are going to be due to size and cost.
Right.
When it's long, but it's like, well, that means start planning on how to budget and finance this stuff now.
It's not like we're throwing it out there for the back burner. At some point, we're going to do it. It's that it's a project that's going to be completed maybe in 5+ years.
And I like that, because then we're not. There's some things if you say, oh, like a priority, like, oh, well, this is a 5. It's a down on the list. That's always. Sometimes that kind of seems to be the stuff that gets forgotten about.
Yeah.
And I know it's just kind of semantics of how you're organizing this and prioritizing, but I think maybe just that language maybe what makes it that everything here is important. We're just looking at is how long it's going to complete.
Everybody okay with that? We're good?
And I will say this, I do have a note on the last page. So there's a footnote on that column. And I just wrote short-term projects could be completed in years 1 to 2, midterm 3 to 5. Long-term projects would likely take more than 5 years to complete. So I mean, I clarified it there. I don't know if we need to clarify it on the column heading.
That's fine.
I think
Okay.
that's good.
Yeah.
As long as you point that out before you start going through the whole thing.
Yeah,
with the
that's right.
council, you
That's a
know,
good
maybe
point, yeah.
they,
Yeah.
That's good.
So bring that up early.
or maybe put that on the first page.
Yeah, that's right.
Ah,
That's a good idea.
It's a header, not a
Make it
footnote.
bold.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah, 'cause I was searching for it. And
Yeah.
I finally found it.
Yeah, okay.
That would be a good
A
idea.
tiny little one next to there, sometimes it's hard to see.
Yeah, that's true.
I found it, but I just
Mm.
didn't find it yet.
All right, let's go to the next one that, and I was gonna ask a question. So, and again, the descriptions, we can change those if, I don't know if it's set, but if there's
Yeah, of
something we feel
course.
like. But survey residents of local plats to determine if they would be in favor of a use tax for adding sidewalks in their subdivision. Are you sure we're not talking about an assessment on the property tax bill?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately that's what it becomes, is an assessment.
Should we say that specifically? I don't know. I
Instead
mean,
of use tax.
yeah, use tax almost sounds like it's a levy to me.
Yeah,
Okay, I don't know.
okay. Well, I mean, I guess it's similar to, street lighting in a subdivision, right? I mean, you create a light district, this would be kind of a sidewalk district, I guess. And do they want sidewalks in their neighborhood? I mean, you mentioned in Valley Brook, maybe not,
Right.
right?
Well, we had also talked about like up at Spring Lakes, and the question was, you think they would want sidewalks up there? Well, I can't speak for everyone, but I know about 5 people that live up there. I think that that kind of a setting, I think that would be no. I don't believe they would go for that. I don't believe they would do that where I'm at. But some places, might want that, especially places where because it's easy to walk in those 2 places. But let's just say down by, when you get down like off of Old Salem into some of those plats down there, it's not so easy to walk. So they may say yes down there.
Like that could help us prioritize the projects.
And somehow the layouts of the property is of some areas where the houses are closer to the road. So people might be going, it's like, well, I'm already right up on the road, and
Right.
We don't want any more yard
Yeah.
Taken away, right? So the assessment would be for the particular neighborhood?
Yeah.
Think, and
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong, maybe. Yeah,
It's for your footage in front of your house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's, so I'm thinking a lot of people are gonna say, no, we don't want it because they don't want the
Because you live in the
assessment.
cul-de-sac, tiny piece.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I'm thinking that might be a deterrent to,
yeah. And
Well, I
again,
don't think it hurts to ask them though.
no.
And the same way with streetlights, I don't think it hurts to, at least we can put out, a
Right.
little communication and say, because then if they all come back, if everyone says no, that makes our job
Job
easy.
easy.
We scratch it off.
We go
Okay,
to
we're
the
not going
next-
there. Yeah.
Go to the next neighborhood.
Well, even if we were to acquire grant funding, say like the ODOT's Safe Routes to School program, if they don't want the sidewalk.
Yeah.
I mean, is it worth going after the funding?
Yeah.
that's a good point.
I think last time we said like a 2-part survey. One, do you want it to tax?
Right, to see if that's the reason they're not accepting it.
Yeah.
Or even
Yeah.
a 3-part question, taxes and maintenance.
Yeah.
Maybe bust it up a little bit to get the real full picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, versus just yes or no.
yeah. Yes, I want it. No, I don't want to pay for it. Right.
Right. How would an assessment be done? I mean, a survey be done?
I think you could probably do a mailer, to be honest. Just put something together, mail it to the residents, the property owners on record.
As
and-
long as it doesn't look like junk mail. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I look at it like trash.
So if you got
Trash.
something that had a, let's say, City of Clayton
In an envelope,
envelope,
Yes.
right?
I
Would
would
you
open
pay
that, but I
attention to
wouldn't
it?
open like
Yeah.
a folder. Maybe not. I'm just depends on what it looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's always the trouble with mail anyway, only certain percentage gets.
Well, good.
Maybe we could do, it's a digital age, right? Maybe we could do put a survey out on the website. Just have people respond to that.
I know
in
we
addition to
utilize,
mailings.
I know we utilize the trash bills for a lot of mailings.
Ah, okay.
That's, yeah, we use that for a lot of communications.
But we haven't done that in a year and a half. Since fourth quarter of 19, we haven't billed for trash.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Scratch that one off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We used to,
We can't do that anymore.
The,
we don't bill
we used to go through us and
for public services, we bill you directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a second. I'm like, well, hey, I paid the trash bill. Where's my refund? So I forgot, yeah, we did the public.
well, there's always a bill.
Yeah, I'm sure they wait.
Yeah, it's like, your water and sewer goes in Montgomery County. The city was billing trash up until they negotiated the contract. I remember the little things coming in about the leaves and it was a good mechanism to get stuff out.
Are we good with number 2?
Yeah.
The way it is, or, whatever the word is, right, whether tax system.
Yeah, I would think, I would understand an assessment over use tax. I wouldn't quite get what a use tax
Right.
was.
Yeah, I think assessment's the right word there.
Yeah.
So.
All right, the third one is all new residential development should include either sidewalks or a multi-use path. All those in favor?
Mhm.
Anybody know? Fourth one is phase sidewalk construction plan to complete various sections of sidewalk throughout the city. Maybe Seth, can you talk about that, explain that a little bit more?
Well, sidewalk infill program, just identifying areas of the city where sidewalk is missing. And in some form or fashion, we would prioritize the most important areas or what are deemed to be the most important areas and put together a phasing to fill in those gaps.
Now, would that somehow, I don't know, marry up with number 2 there in any way? Like, or would these would be like
These would
commercial properties?
probably start more on the collector or arterial type roads.
Okay.
I'm thinking Taywood.
Gotcha.
I mean, I know there's some residents there, but I think you mentioned Union. There were some
Could we
missing
put like
sections.
non-residential?
That'd be
Areas?
better probably, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
would make it more clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I might be wrong on this, but I think Randy has submitted a grant for the section we looked at out there on Union as a, I don't know, kind of a, like, I don't want to say experiment, but kind of a
As a starting
place
point.
to start.
Yeah.
One close to Casey's.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
That is one the city's moving on.
Yeah, so, just,
is
I
great.
mean, it'd kind of be interesting to just see, I don't know how, going from basically from Hunter's Glen to Casey's, I don't know
Mhm.
how much of a win that is, but we can kind of see how it goes from there.
That's a start.
Yeah.
It's
And it's
doing some.
visible and it's
Yeah.
something that
Mhm.
people will say, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
put me inside.
Yeah.
Or, oh, look, we can't even get through that part of the street right now.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Go around,
Well, I know they went out there, and I don't know if you were, I don't know if you know more about this than me, say, but I don't know too much about it, but I think when Randy was out there looking at it again, when they were looking at putting the grant together or the paperwork together, I think they actually talked to the owner,
I think that's right.
Stutz. And at first, I guess, really, he wasn't all that hot about it, but I guess they talked about, why and everything else. And I think he kind of came around to it because it's going to take, purchasing some land from him.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like I said, start.
Yeah,
It's not-
yeah. I think Mindy is right. I think, was it okay if we put non-residential there to kind of show that it's commercial?
Just so it doesn't seem like it's the exact same thing as number 2.
Number 2. Okay.
So start at non-residential base or
Throughout this
Scary, it's not a residential type of.
Well, and I mean, there's things like Union though, and no, correct me if I'm wrong about Union, but certainly Taywood, where there are some houses that front it. I would look at it maybe as more of a roadway classification type, a collector type road or an arterial type road. So
I mean, put that.
primary road sections versus residential streets.
Right, I think that's better
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
That's good. It just, I wanted to just point out, so in the next one, the central core is that, that Brendan and Tim worked on. A couple things I put in my in the executive summary was just that, you both identified 5 cores. Actually, before that, it was a bigger number, and I think you got down to 5. So I just, for example, laid those out. And I was trying to give a little bit of context to this. So, so the first one is under street furnishings, develop standards, a standards book for street furnishings, including benches, bike racks, trash receptacles, ash urns. Ash urns is like smoking for. Oh, okay. I hadn't heard that term. And dog litter stations, develop phased plan to purchase and install street furnishings in various locations throughout the city where residents assemble or recreate. Do we have that to some extent now, or is it just not like as complete as it should be?
We've done some piecemeal applications of street furnishings, but I don't think we have standards that are, this is what we use every time, just because we haven't really done much of it.
Okay.
I think there's a little on National Road. There's probably some on Main Street, but we're wanting to set a standard for the city as part of the, kind of branding for the city as well.
It's good especially like new development, because then, it's like, okay, now someone else is kind of building to that standard.
Yeah, right.
But then at the same time, us doing it as well.
Yeah.
Plus they know what to do.
Yeah.
Versus, us trying to come up with
Plan for them.
or them just making their own plan.
Yeah.
I think if there's a commercial redevelopment, you'd say, look, we'd like you to put in one of our bike racks. We'd like you to put in one of our trash cans, maybe a bench. It just depends on
Where they
if there's
are.
sidewalk out, out front near a bus stop or something along those lines. So it just gives us another tool for development. And then we have those standards when we do road improvements as well.
Everybody okay with this one? Anything we need to add to this? No? Okay. Next one is similar. Develop a standards book for city signage, including wayfinding and for future district signage, i.e. Main Street and historic Clayton. Same theme. We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. Third one is identify critical pedestrian crossings that would benefit from a crosswalk and/or other pedestrian safety features. Crosswalk improvement. Thing like that, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that one.
And we do that to a degree now too, or I guess a pretty large degree actually.
Yeah.
I think all of our crosswalk, the critical ones, I think are addressed. I mean, not all of them have sidewalks.
Yeah,
from one to the other.
Yeah, I mean, some of them obviously as we go forward, like, we're going to start hopefully next month, the Westbrook and Union, or excuse me, 49 and Union intersections getting worked on, I know, and that's going to make it more, you can't, you really can't cross that as a pedestrian right now.
Right.
And then next year is Westbrook and 49. So, I think it's looking at somewhere, even if it's a heavy traffic, but if areas are going to develop and potentially get more pedestrian traffic, I'd say our main ones, even those right now, they're once it gets improved, it's not like you're going to suddenly see an influx of people walking across it. Right. But as development comes around, we're fingers crossed, going to have 100 plus homes coming back, close to there here's in the next couple of years, and hopefully some other stuff. So it could improve.
Yeah, it's an investment in the future. If you've got something for people to come down the Main Street, it'd be nice for crossings to be there. you know, maybe folks on the other side of 49 want to get to something going on at Meadowbrook, you know, a community event. Be nice for them to cross,
Yeah.
you know, very busy street. So, but that kind of ties into the next one, speed study.
So are we, I guess everybody's okay with the crosswalk?
I have a question though.
Yeah.
So, on the crosswalk improvement program, that one, so at those intersections that you mentioned before, well, the Westbrook and
Union.
Union 49.
Westbrook
Yeah.
49, there's not a crosswalk there, right?
Not currently. So the city, we received safety grants from the state to improve those. Now, a lot of it's around traffic. I mean, and I go through those intersections daily, and they can be fun, especially when people are trying to turn from non-turn, you know, when there's not a turn lane there. So it was a lot was geared on the traffic side, but we are going to incorporate, you know, with crosswalk with it as well.
Is there a crosswalk at the other? There's not one down there.
No,
at Hope
no,
either,
unfortunately,
right?
no. At Hoke and
Hope and
49, no. That'd be one I don't know.
Union.
No, there's not.
Nothing.
No, there isn't. It does. Issue 49, I don't know if, or Hoke, I don't know if that ever, that's so commercial around there.
Yeah.
Well,
Union.
there'd have to be some more residential development or some, entertainment, retail things that would have to go in that area that I would see that even
Right.
having that as a
Right,
necessity,
right, yeah. So would that be included? You said that would be included in this, or is that included that somewhere else?
What the,
Crosswalks for those areas?
I think there's
Yeah.
some that are planned for, but this would be looking at ones to plan for the future.
It could be included. I would say it would be included in that, although that may not be the target really.
Yeah.
You know.
Can I ask, we're talking about a standards book for the furnishings of standards. Do we have like some kind of standard for crosswalks? Or is that something you do?
I mean, we have construction standards now
Oh, okay.
for road sections and intersections and, the ramps and things for accessibility and all of that. So that's kind of part of that.
you're
Well-
talking from like an appearance?
In terms of what you were thinking, Mindy, I mean, is that more than just kind of the standard engineering drawing before crosswalk?
Well,
or-
you have developed a standards book for this.
Right,
Like for new
right.
development coming in, if we end up having to have a crosswalk at Hoke or something, or we have to have a crosswalk at Union or Westbrook, is that something that should be in writing somewhere so people know?
I think where we get that is a developer comes in and we tell them, depending on the development, you're going to need to do a traffic study.
Okay.
And so your development, you'll have to mitigate the impact of your development at this intersection or this part of the road. And so that
And
study.
safety is a concern within
Yeah,
that.
and that study could indicate that you need to put in a PED signals or crosswalk
Okay.
at this intersection.
Yeah, I just wondered because we
Yeah.
say we're going to identify it, but then like future development, is that going to be an issue? But
Yeah,
if it's
so-
already in the study, that's fine.
With things like that, I think it's kind of like some retrofitting, going back to crossings that aren't as safe, that aren't going to be impacted necessarily by future development or road improvements. So if it's a new development or a roadway improvement the city's doing, I think that's going to be baked into the process. Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
The next one is the speed study with the ultimate goal of encouraging more pedestrian activity. Complete study to determine areas in the city where speeds could be reduced to accomplish increased pedestrian activity. The only thing about that, the way it's worded, I think it's my own personal opinion, tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I think we really spell out Main Street and other central Main Street in particular. I don't know about everybody here, but maybe I spend more time on Main Street than the other streets. Like, we're all creatures of our paths that we take. Is this issue as important on Hoke? Is it as important on National Road?
They already reduced the speed on Hope.
And yes, on National Road.
It is as important?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
It's 50 miles an hour by the high school.
okay, okay.
So,
Can we say, I mean, I'm just,
Kids, how many kids?
I don't-
Five minutes.
I don't want to be mysterious. Can we say like, for example, Main and National Road, or specifically Main and National, is there anywhere?
Specifically, but not limited to.
Yeah, yeah,
National Road.
Yeah.
that's good.
yeah, that's
That
good
sounds good.
language.
Yeah.
Or how about just saying instead of naming the actual roads or streets, how about using like the vernacular that you said about the other,
Road types.
road types? How
Yeah.
about something like that?
So kind of looking more at collector and arterial roads within
Yeah.
the city
I mean,
to see if there's,
because it could be others too. There's
Yeah.
other places that we, in my mind, need to lower speed limits because, whether or not it would help or not, but you look at the street, like where my son lives out in Diamond Mill, people drive 60, 70 miles an hour. I mean,
What
I'm not
is that road there?
exaggerating.
That's only 45, isn't it?
It's supposed to be,
Supposed to
yeah, it's
be,
supposed to be.
posted versus what
Country-
people actually drive.
Yeah, country.
Some of that country stuff's gonna be a little more
Mhm.
difficult to patrol and
Yeah.
everything. And, but Westbrook's the same thing
Mhm.
through
Oh, yeah.
like,
But the only, and I hear you, the only thing that seems like we did hit a few times, we talked about Main Street as the downtown, as building the downtown core here,
Right.
I don't know, if I get the chance to talk to the council, I'm gonna say I think the most important place, in my opinion, is Main Street, but other people have other opinions, so. I don't know, we can.
Main and 40, I'd say.
Mhm.
I think it's gonna be both because I think we're gonna see, frankly, more development that way quicker than we are Main or as quick.
Yeah, I would agree
There's a lot
with
of,
you.
not as much open space on 48
Right.
as there is on,
Right.
yeah. We've
Yeah.
seen how much interest there is on 40. Yeah.
I think although Plan Clayton envisions Main Street to have a potential for a traditional downtown, our city is so spread out in terms of land area that I think you're going to find cores, literally central cores where
Yeah.
people will gather. I
Yeah.
think 40 in Haber, 40 in Hoke. I think that could be maybe not a downtown, but that definitely could be an area of community gathering.
Yeah.
There's going to be others that develop, or evolve as development occurs. So
And my kind of, the
No.
examples you gave are
Yeah.
I get it, and I think, all right, I just, if it's okay, I wouldn't mind making a finer point on the two bigger, on the development corners, I guess.
Right.
It's okay. Good.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Okay, the last one here is city council to adopt a policy for a more aggressive approach to gaining control over properties along the city's commercial corridors that have been neglected or in a state of repair. I'll throw one thing out. Does it just have to be neglected? Could it be just underutilized as well? Could it be both? Or not in the highest and best use kind of thing?
Especially down on Main, right?
Well, I mean-
Or would that include, just open
Open
property? We're working right now on a property on 48 that the city's about to sell.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
It's a small parcel.
I guess it could be all of that, right?
thinking about opportunities for the city to acquire property and to gain, and usually it's around properties that have been neglected, the taxes haven't been paid, you find it in a terrible state of disrepair, but.
We were doing that a couple years ago. There was some properties that around the village of North Clayton that, they came up, Jack came to us and said, well, we might have opportunity to get this. And at that time, our concern as well is some investment company in Texas going to try to buy this and sweep in, buy this on a short sale and then to sit on it where we want to, we would actually put out like, hey, we don't want to sit on this. We want someone to come in and develop it.
Yeah.
So it's been a mix.
I think it's a good point, though. I think a strategic look at all available properties, especially at Main Street, where you're going to need an assemblage to create really a downtown area. For the
Right.
city.
Mhm.
The vision that you have, you have to have more
Yeah.
development.
At
there.
least a good full block, maybe two, to create that vision.
I got two points I want to comment on this. One, this might be tougher than it appears to do for a city, because there's a lot of people, me being one, I think everyone to a degree, we're all to different degrees, I think, that don't like the idea of cities buying property. You know, we're not, because we're still stewards of the money, so, is it a real estate investment? When does the city buy real estate? So I think, we might get some pushback, maybe not so much from the council, but I think we get some pushback from residents on that. So we have to be real careful on what we buy. But the other thing, the reason I think that we probably focus on the neglected or other properties, because that's the only ones likely that we're going to buy, because we're not going to, I would think that we're probably not going to go out and pay market value for property unless it was just something that was going to be a home run, something we had to have.
I mean, one of the things that I think Derek and I talked about was early on, and we weren't sure whose group it fit in, was assessing fines and stuff for people that aren't keeping their property up, or, doing that kind of thing. Is that included in there?
That's just basic code enforcement. And actually, we do a fairly good job of that now. I mean, there's times like, if you ever drive down Union right before you hit Summer Suite, there's an infamous house there, and people ask me like, "What's going on with that?" It's like, we're finding them.
Yeah, they just keep paying.
Someone I did have to say, "Do you want the chief to go there and like arrest them?" Like, they kind of had that tone with me. It's like there's a certain level, of code enforcement. Overall, I think the city does a good job with the standards that we have, and I think our standards are
So we have standards for not only residential, but for the
correct.
commercial too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have to follow a process to get to the point where you can declare it a nuisance.
Right.
And then the city can go in and take care of, a building that's falling down or something like that.
It's a lot easier to start that when you kind of have some ammo, like the nuisance, or people, like when the famous example is that the old Laura's Loft buildings down there on Main. Well, we'd like to get those. We've wanted to get those for years, but when it's hard to go in and try to buy it at a good low price. Because everybody looks at the real estate now, and Kim knows this too. Everybody thinks they're sitting on $1 million property because it's on Main Street, and they're not, but they think they are. So it's hard for us to go in and try to buy a property like that unless they're behind on taxes or something like that.
Or they're not keeping it up.
Then we can give them a way out. Well, even if they're not keeping it up, like you say, we can send them a letter, they mow the grass, then they get a reprieve, for another couple months or whatever.
I was thinking if somebody did that to me, like if I owned commercial property and they kept hounding me and I kept having to pay fines, I might sell it.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah, well, that's not everybody.
Yeah.
I wish it was. That'd be a lot easier. But I think,
Yeah, that's true.
especially, they think it's a city that wants it. But like I said, this might be one there that we do. That's something that I think the staff will have to put together a plan for because what kind of sticks out to me is the word policy.
Mhm.
We have to make sure, I like a policy, but we have to make sure that it's going to be something that's going to fit what the residents interpret. So
Do we want to change any of the wording either in the project name or the description itself?
Yeah, two, I guess one point and one observation. I worked building code and fair housing for the city of Canton, and we had a policy that, and this might not work for every single property. I'm not sure how it was classified, or it would be classified for us to actually get some movement here, but any vacant property, the property owner of record had to have a bond with the city. And what that did was allowed the city to have a pool of money to maintain the property. So that bond could be used to repair siding. I boarded up houses primarily, so that would pay for the contractors to come out and board, the city employees to board up the house, and then also cut grass and things like that. I don't know how we could use it for a property like Laura's Loft or something like that, but it definitely puts the pressure on the owner to let them know that you're just not going to sit on this piece of property. What it was really useful for was like if the property owner was from California and they weren't taking care of the house in Canton, then we could usually cut them to either sell the house or start taking care of
I
the
mean, I like that idea. I don't
have-
think we've ever done anything like, approached anything like that.
Well, we might be doing that next door to me.
Okay.
If that house that needs to be torn down, they got tornado damage. But then Jack had mentioned that we have grant funds out there to potentially do that. Now that's one, I mean, it's going to get foreclosed on. So at that point, we're basically doing the bank a favor.
Yeah.
But it gets
We did that on Crestway, right as you pass our flat there, Country View, right as you pass it, on the right, there used to be an old Westbrook Club.
I know
think it
exactly
was
where
a
it
gun
was.
club or something like
Mhm.
that. And it was literally falling in. I mean, if you went back in there, it was dangerous.
Mhm.
And so I started calling the city, and they finally came out and they finally contacted the people in Florida that owned it. And you guys, Clayton, made them tear it down and haul away all the stuff
Okay.
because it was dangerous for residents in the area.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there is something
I'm not
in
sure.
place, or
I'm not sure if a bond program or anything like what I'm suggesting would have to be voted on by the individual citizens of Clayton, or if that could be something council does unilaterally, or I'm not entirely sure who would have that responsibility.
Mhm.
But it was pretty effective,
Yeah.
and it at least gives us a pool of money to help the other property owners out if there is an issue, which there are zero issues like the type that Kent was dealing with at that time in
Right.
Clayton,
Yeah.
but there are still a couple of pieces of property. And then the other point that I had, I know of at least one piece of property that qualifies for the lot link program in Clayton that isn't, or not lot link, that's the date one, the land bank, that isn't in that program at the moment. They're 2.5 years behind on their taxes, and the property is vacant, at least as far as I know, because the windows are busted out and the doors open. So
Where's that at, if you don't mind
right up
saying?
here, there's a single-story house, 2 or 3 houses down from Jeff Rezabeck.
Okay.
Looks like I would assume that the copper's out of the house. They just mowed the yard.
Right
Maybe
on?
a couple
No.
months ago.
Wholesale.
Wholesale.
Oh,
Yeah.
4 or 5 houses down.
Okay.
We're not down that. I keep pointing out.
Yeah,
Right, you went that way, I'm like, wait a minute.
But I know they're 2.5 years behind on their taxes, but they're not in the land bank program at the moment. So is there anything that the city can do to either force those properties into the land bank? I assume force might be the wrong word, or if that is the right word, something that we can't do, but is there anything we can do to get those properties that are 1 or 2 years behind on taxes into the land bank? And if not, is there anything we can do as a city to collect those taxes or push them to get rid of the property, however that may be done? I'm not sure, but
I think you're right though. Yeah, so there's not been any movement for long enough where you don't think somebody's coming back to it, right?
yeah,
right. Yeah.
well, it looks like they're doing just the bare minimum to appease the city, I would assume, and then probably the bare minimum to maintain the taxes.
I'm talking about the brick, 1 story, the ranch,
Single story,
right here.
yeah, it's owned by a property holdings company. They have apartments in Dayton. So I'm not sure if everyone's in the yard, what
I
happened.
think that went into foreclosure a couple of years ago.
It did, it was sold
For
for
what?
a significant amount of money, so I don't
Yeah.
think the property owning company's gonna let go. That's for sure.
Me and my husband went peeking around in
Well, if the
there.
doors are open and it's flooded in the basement, isn't that a danger to residents around the area? I think we should maybe address that.
At least figure out what mechanism we need to take those properties or dispose of them
Acquire.
accordingly. Yeah.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
Acquire those.
Do we want to leave this as it is? The wording?
Do you want to change the word policy? That's the one you have to.
I don't think we need to really change it, but I just want, like, I just mentioned that as a heads up. But I like the word I do like in it is aggressive. I think we need to be more aggressive on like the property like you're talking about, or like what we're talking about on down there on Main. There's a few that probably fit that description, maybe not to that degree down on Main Street. You know, there's a few things in my mind that we could be more aggressive on.
So is
but-
policy gonna be a red flag for the council? Can we change it to like plan,
Or program
adopt
or
a
something.
plan or a program?
I
Or
really don't think that word
will?
would, no, I
Okay.
mean, it's what we do.
Okay,
I like
And I think you're starting to see that with a lot, and Trotwood is in the news within the last maybe month or so about how they're stepping up code enforcement. And it's all, stuff they already have, but I think you're starting to see that more and more in some areas to keep property values up.
The only thing I think wouldn't be bad, and tell me if they instead of just neglected, and obviously Mike earlier, those neglect, I think you're right. I mean, that was the more low hanging fruit, but can we put like strategic in there? Because like as the policy, because like, I don't know. I kind of like what Derek said. I get that the city does not have a ton of money to do this control of property, but there might be situations that come along, like Derek suggested with the land bank, that may take a little work, but it could be worth the work, right?
Mhm.
I mean, you're not going to outbid an investor from California 9 times out of 10, or an investor anywhere who wants to, but there might be some little Easter eggs in there that could be with work with the land bank or with the Port Authority, So I guess my only thing is I just don't want to, if we can kind of like open up the concept that, the city will focus on the neglected stuff, but when there's a good opportunity and it's doable, we'll go after something else. Does that make sense?
You have to take the word commercial out of the description then?
No, I was just thinking, I guess the only thing is I just don't.
Well, because Derek mentioned this single family residence
Yeah.
down here as an example, so.
I will say, there are, and we all know this, there are communities who do end up saying, man, that piece of land is so important to our future development that we are going to do it. And then they explain to taxpayers and citizens why it's worth it to do it. And in hindsight, you look back, you're like, wow, I'm glad we did that. So that might happen here. I mean,
Yeah.
there might be a point when the city would say, we really, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I guess I'd.
Are you almost suggesting replace strategic or replace aggressive with strategic?
I was thinking in the policy, say strategic property control policy, and maybe I'm splitting hairs. But
I think that's,
the description. I think it might be fine. I think might be talking about action steps.
Okay.
Maybe we just need to add some more specific points to the action steps, like the policy includes strategic acquisition of certain property once if the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, maybe that's the right way to say it. Something like that.
Something about pressure on the land bank, or I am particularly fond of that bond program we had.
Yeah, right.
Paid my salary and provided tons of money to actually address those issues. So maybe adopt legislation or adopt some type of administrative rule to require property owners to hold a bond if the property is vacant. To acquire strategic properties in commercial areas when the opportunity presents itself, or even just identify those properties.
so doesn't develop policy for city cover those? I mean,
It's a little
if you wanted
broad.
to put underneath of that,
Yeah.
bond, the
Yeah.
land, you know,
Just be specific.
yeah. Because really, if you do adopt a policy, you would put that kind of stuff in there, I would think.
Yeah, they have been neglected or they've been neglected or I guess Derek said this, represent an opportunity for investment for the city. I just, something that's just not, when people read that, they're going to think, oh, I guess, I don't really believe this, but I do think there might be times when the city council says, oh my God, we got to get a hold of this property somehow. And then staff go do it.
Yes, consider it
Right,
vacant lots also.
yeah,
He just has
Yeah.
little guidance.
right. Okay. I'd probably.
Can you wordsmith that a little bit? And
probably do
so.
that.
kind of,
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, the third bucket is connected parks. Meadowbrook comprehensive planning. We good? It is recommended that the city hire a consultant to evaluate the existing facility and operations and come up with a plan to better utilize the facility, the vacant land, and ways to improve the inclusivity of the facility for residents that may not be golfers, i.e. park, recreation space for young families, additional community events, full-time marketing operations staff.
I will say that I've added a line, it's not on your copy, but I've added a line basically to say, although the committee recommends keeping Meadowbrook a golf course, it is recommended that the city, da, 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 da. So I've kind of added that at Dan's suggestion. Just so it's clear that we want to keep it as a golf course, but we think that, it could be used probably in a higher and better way.
Any comments on that?
Keep as a golf course and hire a consultant, is that what you're saying?
Basically the line will read, although the committee recommends keeping Meadowbrook as a golf course, it is recommended that the city hire a consultant. So basically what we're trying to do is look at the facility more comprehensively and do an actual plan for that facility. Moving forward, how will it be used, and how can we maximize the facility, and kind of open it up to non-golfers as well, because it truly is, I think, becoming a community facility, but not everybody golfs. So can we add playgrounds or other programs that other folks would be attracted to as well?
Is that good? And I put in a good summary that we know that there's been a lot of conversation about this. So it's we know this isn't like a no. Hardscrabble Park, look comprehensively at Hardscrabble Park to evaluate how to strengthen the existing facilities and determine if additional athletic or outdoor uses could be added to benefit the community at large. And I don't know, we didn't say hire a consultant there, so the city could,
Yeah, I think we've got a Parks Advisory Commission that we can certainly collaborate with.
A lot of potential there.
Yeah. How many acres is it?
Oh, what is that? I mean, overall, because it goes fairly back, but even just when you come in between the ball fields, but then the river and kind of recreational areas.
what, maybe 15 or 20?
Yeah, it's
Something
right
like
around
that.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I would guess.
I was gonna guess around 15.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's it. It's good size.
Yeah.
It's pretty good size.
Mhm.
We're okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Just put a new scoreboard.
Okay.
But it was
Which
paid
one?
Hardscrabble.
Top?
Yeah.
Top? Yeah.
hmm It was paid half by the city, half by one of the baseball organizations.
That's
Oh,
right.
oh,
Yeah,
cool.
the Clayton Wildcats.
One thing too, this is really a weird connection to make, but it's got a natural connection to me. But, we're also doing a lot of work up there. We're continuing. This will be the second year. I just talked to the lady a couple days ago. We're working on that cemetery up there,
Oh.
the old Clayton Cemetery. What's connected to the park,
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think that is it's not a park, it's a cemetery. But I think that is, we're getting that in shape. It looks better now than it ever has. We paved it and all that. But I think that whole area there can be encompassed. You know, not like I said, I'm not trying to make the cemetery a park, but
Well, look what
it's a
Inglewood did.
visual thing, you know.
But look what how Inglewood is kept up. I mean, that cemetery is right smack in the middle
Yeah.
of their
The
city,
city,
and so
yeah.
they know like, hey,
And they got a
you know,
walking path right through it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
did they?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
That's kind of the origins of the community right there as well. So there's a history aspect to it.
yeah, there's a big history thing up, you know, big history link up there. But I
Oh,
just
yeah.
think that should be kind of,
Mhm.
you know, again, it's not a park, but
You don't want to look and, you know, if it's something
Should look
we're
yeah.
responsible for. You know,
So
it should-
it's not a private cemetery now.
No,
No,
no.
no.
It's a big cemetery. I mean, not big, but it's, yeah, not just one family or whatever. No, it's,
Well, I mean, privately owned, but it's owned by the city.
Right,
it's
we
all
maintain
property.
it.
Oh, okay.
There's still quite a few,
We're still
this
selling
space
them
out
there.
Yeah.
Wow. You wouldn't want the cemetery if it's anywhere close to the entrance to be looking.
Bad.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then go to this nice new park.
Well, we have this lady from, I can't recall her name right off, Catherine. No, the lady from Tip City or West Milton. She has been restoring because some of those grave markers up there, you can't even read. They're so old. I mean, they're really,
We have one, have you ever gone like right where Hogue and Crestway?
yeah,
That
little one
tiny
in there.
cemetery, that's
Yeah.
a family
Yeah.
cemetery, but
yeah.
those, oh my gosh, you can't hardly read those.
No,
but
they're
like,
super old.
yeah, early 1800s.
There's some in Inglewood like that. Some of those
Yeah.
founders of the city where
Right.
it's like, well, you know, this is it, even though you can't read it, but that just, you can't stop erosion.
Right.
You know, at some
Yeah, I
point,
mean,
yeah,
Unless
erosion
somebody's
of
gonna
rock,
replace
yeah.
that
Mhm.
stone.
Are they considered historic?
I would think, I don't know, I mean, I would never think that somebody would come in and take that out, because that's like history,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but I'm a history major. So.
I think there's one on right at the board on Sweet Potato. I think, yeah, there's one if you go up Sweet Potato. There's one, I think, on the Union side.
Yeah.
As I recall.
Yeah.
That's a little
Well, I
famous
always know
cemetery,
it's
yeah.
the one on No.
Oh, it's the one right beside that house.
Right beside the house.
Yeah,
Old
yeah,
Taylor-
yeah, Old Taylor.
At Union.
That's the other one.
I know, I mean, I just noticed that cemetery just in the wrong place.
Right.
You know?
Right in the middle of all
Right,
this.
the house
I
is-
know.
I think
yeah.
they were thinking of development when they put these cemeteries
I
up on the
know,
road,
I know.
you know?
So maybe the development went
Yeah.
around the cemetery, yeah.
My son was like, we'll never live for it. So,
You saw on Halloween.
yeah.
Good deal. Well, I think we're all good on that one. The next one is just, and this is long-term, I think we all probably realize that, but just connect and, you know, kind of working with the other communities to connect to the bike paths.
So it would be, and maybe you've answered this in prior meetings, so that would be 2 million coming from
Everybody.
everybody.
Yeah.
So that would,
Yeah.
and then including Harrison Township is, I mean, you know, in a perfect world, we could kind of say, hey, if we split this, let's go
Yeah.
by population. Well,
Yeah.
as you know, that's not, so, you know, that's not, Harrison Township isn't going to, especially how it's like, well, we're not going to cover half of this, even though if you went by that.
Would
But
it be equitable to do it by the lineal feet or the mileage that's in your community?
that'd still be Harrison. It's still probably half of it.
Yeah,
Um,
that would be difficult.
Yeah, but I think it's long term, but I mean, the Northmont cities are working better together. Obviously, we have the fire collaborative now, so this is something that long term, but I like it, and it's something.
Forward to.
Yeah, I mean, it might take 5 or 10 years
Yeah.
plus for us,
Yeah.
but if we start planning now and you know and keep the bug in everyone's ear to say like, all right, here's how we can, here's how we can get to this 2 million.
Well, plus I think I don't think it was mentioned here, but I still think we can look out of the box too, because, you know, we get focused on all that stuff along the river down there.
Yeah,
And there could be other opportunities. You know, we had talked about that coming from over there, like where the Trotwood
right.
bike path
Yeah,
is.
right.
You know, it's probably closer, and it's probably, frankly, it's probably more doable. But, you know,
Just a cleaner path. You're just a
well, it's less jurisdictions for one thing.
Yeah,
You know, it's two versus, you know, all these groups, you know, end up working together. So
Yeah.
that makes it a little bit easier, but I'm talking about just the actual, you know, as the birds fly, it's a lot, it's
right.
pretty close.
Yeah,
So,
Do we
not
know-
saying that it would be easy, but.
Yeah, do we even know if any of these communities would be interested in doing this, or is this just?
That's part of the
Conversation.
Yeah,
exercise.
yeah.
I think relationship building is key because there have been rifts with certain Northmont communities for a long, long time. And so that could help to repair that. But for me, I think this connection, the Stillwater Trail connection, I'm not sure about the other paths to the west, but it seems like this would give you access to so much more in terms of the regional system. North and south, but also east. I'm not sure the paths that you're talking about, Mike, how far those actually go out.
Yeah. Well, you would definitely have access to more.
On
More.
Stillwater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that maybe, Mike, if, you know, if you could have Five Rivers come out either like at a work session or something, and just have them start the discussion.
Yeah.
Because I keep hearing that they really want this artery to happen. And I think they know that it's not just Clayton, it's got to be everybody. So maybe they could kind of give you some. And the other thing, the match doesn't have to just come from public dollars. I think the match can come from, private fundraising too. So
That's true.
So maybe this is something where you say to the major service clubs in every community, can we bond together? I don't know.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Big foundation project potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
that's a great point.
Yeah.
And there's various bicycling advocacy groups too. I mean, there's potential that they could help raise funds because it's.
Wish Clay Matteel's still in P&G. You just tell them give sponsorship opportunities for all the brands.
I mean, they would be key connections,
Hmm.
for the entire system. Which
So we're
Put a use tax. Put a use tax.
There we go.
On your bike with
A little,
yeah, but
little
staff
toll
person
booth.
there.
Good way to get
Good
that
deal.
done now.
The last one under this bucket of work is in lieu of trying to connect all the neighborhood parks of the city, has recommended the city adopt a policy of maintenance and minor improvements to the existing neighborhood parks. And in if you read in the executive summary, we talked about the fact that we want to keep those pocket parks or those neighborhood parks looking good, but the gas in the tank shouldn't be like going to those mainly. Is that the right way to say it, Mike?
I think, to me, yes. I mean, I think we keep them as they are and make them as good as they can be without spending too much money on them.
I think we mentioned it here in prior meetings, a lot, new development coming in, a lot of that we do require, recommend, and, a lot of plans we've seen so far incorporate, some sort of park there. And like the one potentially going in behind me, they basically kind of promote this like, well, it's obviously a park in the middle of that development, but it'll tie into mine and be open for the public and everything. So that kind of be the new parks going on.
All right, the last subcommittee, and then we can ask those questions about housing too, but this is what Mike and Seth worked on. First one, and as you guys said, this really kind of blended into the work that Kim and Brendan did too. But hire a traffic engineer to prepare the city's first thoroughfare plan, which will identify right-of-way widths for the city's major and minor roads and provide direction to developers in terms of right-of-way with the city. You got that one. You got it. As part of the development project. As part of a development project.
Right.
We good on that one? Is it? We just have kind of explained that.
Yeah, I mean, so much of these are just tools in our toolbox for,
Yeah.
for future development and road improvement projects.
The next one is study the city's existing overhead utility infrastructure and target critical locations for relocating the overhead tow lines to underground to improve the aesthetic of a particular corridor area. I think that the distinction there is you're not talking about everywhere. You're talking about places that really can show, right? Show value.
Yeah, again, new development, roadway improvement projects. I think new development lines are going to be underground. Roadway improvement projects, an opportunity to bury unsightly overhead lines. This would be looking at some areas that are strategic or critical in the city that it's really clutter the corridor or just don't look, look great. And it
Is
might
there
be an
like an example of
opportunity.
that?
I don't have anything immediately. Mike, do you have any that come to your mind? I'm sure I can find some as I drive around.
I mean, I don't know how, like on Main Street, for instance, and this, like I said, this is really fighting off a big project here, but like on Main Street, I would like to see no telephone poles for lack of, I guess that's what you call them, power line poles, or, you see those things all over. And I just think, I think if we could get everything on those corridors like that buried, I'd be really happy. Some of that stuff out in the rural areas, it's not going to ever be buried.
Yeah.
But,
But for future development and stuff, and what
Future
you have
development.
as the vision of
Yeah.
the city looking like through the middle
Yeah.
of Main Street.
if we want,
It would be
if,
nice.
to me, Main Street could really be sweet because we've got a pretty good long stretch there. It could be really a nice entrance into the whole area up here.
Yeah.
If that was nice and clean and we had nice sidewalks, and a couple roundabouts and
Got rid of
couple
some of the
blah,
buildings.
blah, blah. Yeah. So it's just those things,
That's not much.
No, had a nice, maybe a median.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where we can, when you think of it, if we want to make that our downtown, it has to get away from the raceway.
Yeah.
That it is now.
So you're talking the entire stretch of that Clayton.
I mean, in the perfect world, I'd say yes. That'd be, but again, that's a pretty long, pretty
I mean,
healthy.
that would take some time, kind of phasing it out, but it's part of the beautification that is, again, will contribute to our brand on Main Street, and it is one of the key entries and corridors in the city.
And if you start it where you're going to have city center and just keep
Building
building
out.
out,
Exactly right.
as years go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that makes sense.
Exactly.
I use Troy as an example. When you look at how they're, of course, I'd kill for what they have. They're old historic downtown and things that are going in there. It's kind of having a revitalization. But then when you go into the areas right outside of it, and you see how it's built out from there and continuing to, because there's been a few stretches where they weren't very developed, and now they're starting to get that. So
Builds momentum, doesn't it? Yeah.
There's another city, actually, this would be kind of an interesting little field trip someday if we'd ever want to arrange it, but you may know something about this, but, Pick was kind of trying to do what Troy
There it is.
has, but they're not, they're just trying to basically do it now. So it'd be kind of interesting to see what challenges they've had if it would, it's a different kind of a downtown than what we're talking about, but it still could be some of the same challenges. So
It's my hometown.
well, there you go.
Yep.
Good. Well, so everybody's good with that. That makes sense. The next one, I'm just going to suggest that the next one's kind of like the second one. Study water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater deficiencies and create a phase plan for critical improvements to parts of these systems that aren't likely to be improved as part of a future development project. My sense is you'd be doing that anyway, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I think so. And the big one there is, of course, historic Clayton.
Okay.
There's a lot of challenges with that.
How about the next one? Hire an environmental engineer to identify areas of the city that would be ideal for infrastructure improvements and would benefit from the use of green infrastructure best practices in lieu of standard physical structures, i.e. catch basins, gutters, storm piping, etc. Is this something that would be driven by a developer or the city or both?
I think a developer, if you're taking a large acreage field and making a development that is multiple sub areas, maybe of commercial, residential, and they're putting a public street in, potentially in something like that. But also from the city standpoint, I mean, I'm thinking of the potential maybe Hoke and Winger. If you do a roundabout, that might be a great opportunity to do something where you have bioswales and things where you don't need all the piping, and you know, it saves costs. It's a little more environmentally friendly as well.
Okay.
You know, because it helps to filter out the runoff and that sort of thing. So.
You know, on that particular thing, I just like the words seeing in here green, and the reason is I personally believe we should go that way anyway. But you know, also if you look at our on our website and things, you know, we kind of claim we're a green city and blah blah blah, and we're not. You know, we're really not.
Yeah.
That's right. You know, so I think it's. I mean, I think if we're going to say that.
Oh, meaning like things like this need to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to say we're that, I think we should
Actually,
be that. Yeah.
Work toward that.
Yeah.
Toward it, yeah.
Actually, but a lot of cities can say that too, right? I mean,
Well, everyone says they want to do that, but
yeah,
you know, you have to look for examples of really how you do it and what you want to do. So,
okay.
I think that would be. I think if we do those things and say those things, I think that's a great draw.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people would be drawing the city for.
Do you think that there's like some kind of a certification thing where cities could do X and X and X and they really could say,
I bet you there is. I mean, I'd say that there probably is. But again, it's one of those things, you know, when you start from where we are, we're really starting from, I don't know what you'd say we do that's green. You know,
We'd be
anywhere
starting
really.
from square one.
Start from square one.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that in a future downtown where you've got
Who makes up the qualifications to say who's green?
Well, I think, you know.
I mean, I
Is
think
there
it's
such a
just
thing?
best practices. I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
best
it's not
practices.
like buildings where you can get LEED certification for being energy efficient and
yeah.
that sort of thing. It's a best practices thing that you can advertise that you're doing these really good
Working
things.
toward
Yeah.
that,
I'll give you an example that I thought this is kind of a small little thing, but it is a thing. But if we could think about something like this, like when I was working at the newspaper downtown, that at the Cox building down there, you know, that they built that new, they had the original NCR building and that they bought, then they built onto that where they built the TV studios. Well, on the TV studios, the top of the roof is grass, basically, some kind of ground cover. I don't know, it's not exactly
Green roof
grass,
is what
but
they
yeah.
call it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about like in itself, that's really not much. But if you have that mentality of spreading that kind of thing around, like for new development, for instance, and things like that, then I think, you know, it starts making a little bit more sense. One building doesn't mean much, but you know, if you have the community mentality, I think it means a lot.
It builds on itself.
Yeah.
And then some places I know that say, you know, they have the community gardens.
Yeah.
Where it's a whole big area and then these people come and work on it. And people take vegetables, take whatever, but.
Well, I've even thought of that, you know, what would really be the perfect spot for that. It's Hardscrabble Park. Take out the baseball diamonds. You could have a lot of plots.
Up above.
You
They
could have a lot of
wouldn't
plots
Take out
down
the baseball diamonds.
Yeah.
There's so much land up there at the top of the last field, you know?
I thought that baseball was being used there.
Just I think there's just
There's
one
like a main field. I think.
main field.
Clayton
that,
Wildcats. It's
Yeah.
a, what is it, a
Yeah.
league or
uh,
premier or whatever it is.
a select
Travel
piece.
ball,
Select,
yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Those were-
But the rest of it's, I don't know how much it's used, if at all. There's no
Good
Little
idea.
League or anything like that down.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say that.
There's in a community that had
Right.
that.
They were
and
multiple.
Just kind of register a plot with the city or the Parks and Rec, and
Take care of.
yeah,
I think that would give the people of the village up there a nice place, because a lot of those lots are small. They can't
can
make a
you
garden.
collaborate with the food pantry or something locally to,
Yeah.
because you're gonna probably grow more than you can.
But that would be
use.
a good example of a green initiative.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, because the food bank does take, community farmers,
Yeah,
food from community
Yeah.
farmers.
absolutely.
Well, good. Everybody okay with keeping that one?
Yeah, if we do it.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
it.
Okay.
If it says
Let's add
green,
that.
I think we need to.
Put green. in the little
That's right. Or else take
Add an
green off.
exclamation point at the
Yes.
The last one is similar to, I think, the other, or tell me, Seth, tell us, is that similar to those other standard books? I mean, like, this is something that the city would do?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so Salem and Union and Salem and Westbrook are done, you're going to see our new standard for mast arm major intersection lighting and sort of decorative mast arms. And that's exciting, but we'll have some for our primary roads. We'll have a different standard for our residential that's more at a pedestrian scale. So I'm already, since I've started, I've already kind of put some things together. So I think we'll just continue that.
And the last one is probably similar to that too.
You got it. Yep. The gateway program. Yep. So, I mean, we've got a gateway entry feature. Mike and I have discussed that can be improved, and there's other areas where I think we can identify and eventually do some type of gateway feature. That just kind of advertises the city and establishes the brand as you're coming into the community.
Good.
You put your underground tunnel idea on there.
Love it.
That's right.
Love it.
I love
Hey,
it
we'll get
too.
Elon on.
I think that's
He's all about those tunnels.
that's
So
a great
yeah,
idea.
get Elon out here.
I saw a Tesla driving through on Main Street down here that had Elon Musk on the back. On the license plate. Yeah, and I said,
Probably not.
he wasn't a
That's true.
Tesla.
Yeah.
Well, good work. So we'll present this to the council on, again, I'm sorry, the date again.
This is
Okay.
July 15th.
Oh, it's the 15th?
Could we get any comments or feedback on the executive summary and the recommendation plan before July 4th holiday? And then that would give us a week, or part of a week to kind
So
of
this is Thursday, July 15th.
Thursday, July 15th at 6:30. Yep.
Gotcha.
You'll be sending out will you send out?
I'll send an invite just to get it on everybody's calendars. If
I must have been-
if you can make it, that'd be great.
No,
We'd
it's
like to have the whole
July
team,
6th.
the whole committee.
There's an email. It's gonna be a workshop.
Mike and Brendan, of course, will be there. And I'll talk to you, Dan, but we might have you kind of start with a summary of your executive, especially kind of talking, about the housing piece as well.
I hope people can read this and really tell me if you think there's something in here that I either embellished or whatever, but I think they generally match up, this matches up with what we just talked about. Just on the housing piece, I did kind of look at, I just spend 1 minute on this just so you can get the flavor for this. What I said, I said, I gave a couple reasons why it's a good thing to advocate for more housing. You could tell me if you think that sounds right. But I said, the city could do this without our advice, number one. But I said, here's some thoughts that we have. One is, explain why it can benefit the community. I heard Mike talk about this a couple minutes ago that, if people say, I'm worried about why does my neighborhood have to pay for all these services? And one of the answers is, well, we're going to try to build out more housing so that we can spread this out a little bit. I mean, because sometimes people miss that. Second thing is Troy hired a housing consultant, and they identified what kind of housing the city had. I should have brought that graphic with me. I think I might have sent to Seth, but
Sent to me too,
sent to
yeah.
Mike. So basically Troy has more single family homes than they ever need, but they don't have this whole diversity of housing that people also are attracted to, whether it's doubles, whether it's condos, right? So it really kind of literally looked at that whole spectrum and said, you're good here, but we think there's more capacity here and here and here, right? The third one was, I just put in here that as part of that effort, maybe the city could set some realistic targets for the number and the type of housing units that study would come back and say that you needed. And then you could also talk about standards around quality. So I think sometimes people, human nature being what it is, people sometimes go to a place where they think, well, that's not going to be a good place. It's not going to be quality like what we know, right? So talk about it. And then the last thing I just put is, keep reminding people about why it matters. So again, I did a little editorializing on that, and I really would hope that people look at that and say, you didn't need to say that. I'm fair with that, but look at it.
Yeah.
Is that meaning potentially when Redwood's going to present again? Because it's the end of this month when they do the planning commission.
Yeah.
That would be, if there was ever a perfect meeting for you to say
Oh.
that, it would be that.
Preface that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
So warm them up at the workshop and.
Well, it is important to have different
they're
types of
real
diversity.
Yeah, I agree.
It can't all be the same.
Yeah,
Well, and Dan, I think your point more toward workforce housing, or what we call in planning the missing middle, right? Yeah, the housing that's close to the jobs that we have, like Caterpillar.
I hear it in every city. I hear it in the city. I mean, city's got Emerson Electric, Cargill, and they are saying, they've said, we don't like the fact that a lot of our people have to drive a half an hour to come to work. I get it. I mean, it'd be hard.
Yep.
People with kids it's hard.
Yeah.
There's just not enough out there. Kim and Mike are living this right now in terms of the real estate side.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
that's the battle we have going with,
Is it?
new development, but then the diversity of development, and
Yeah.
we've seen the pushback on it. But yeah, that'll be an interesting meeting, of course, if that's when Redwood's presenting. So we'll probably have a big crowd here. They probably might not come for the workshop, or be starting to trickle in, but that would be. I mean, I personally was when Redwood was it Redwood or Windsor was first presented. I think Windsor
Did a workshop, right?
Well, and when it was last summer, and when Jack had mentioned like, hey, we got interesting apartments, I was super excited. Just like, we haven't had new apartments in this community in my whole lifetime. And when I was in my early 20s, my first apartment was down in Kettering.
Yeah.
At the time I was working in Dayton. Then
Mine was too. I couldn't find. I mean, same thing.
There was very little, and then I moved up into one of those duplexes behind PNC Bank for 6 months, and but yeah, there's just for rentals, and the one what's on Heathcliff and 48, and those aren't bad. They're